Hey, Steepers. Just a quick note. This episode was done virtually, and unfortunately, the mic did not pick up very well in the audio. We still thought the episode was great and worth the release, but just a heads up, the audio is not as pristine as it usually is. Anyway, here's the show.
That on top of like booking and managing podcasts, and then the time that it takes to record the podcasts, and
Wait a minute, you
like,
do other podcasts beyond Steep Conversations?
I know. Can you
We
believe
are
that?
upset. We're going to be filing a note with your publisher that is unacceptable.
Guys, sorry. I mean, they're not nearly as fun.
Yes.
Not nearly as fun.
All right, we're back in. We're back in the game. I feel good again.
We're back in the game.
And are you ever going to these book signings and having someone come up and be like, I loved your book so much, I looked you up, and I'm so excited that you live in blah, 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 this place, and, you go to this supermarket. Like, has anyone really creeped you out in that regard?
Oh, no. Thankfully, not yet. Like, I'm not that big. I'm not big enough yet, but maybe one day. I'm
Yeah,
like, is that the goal or is it not the goal? Like, that, is that level, like, too much where it's, like, creepy status?
What I tell people when people say, what is your comedy goal? I always tell people I want to be able to perform when I want, where I want.
Yeah.
And what I've been told by multiple comics who are much further ahead in their career than me is like that the other side, the other edge of that sword is accepting what the payment that comes with it, which is sometimes you will be recognized and sometimes you will have to do things you don't want to do and have someone come up and be like, Bob, on episode 17 of your podcast, I noticed that you said your favorite color is orange, and then on this one you said it was green. So what is it?
Yeah. Like a different kind of scrutiny that comes with that, 1000%.
Yeah.
I mean, it's true. You're exactly right. Like, I think as artists, we like strive for that freedom where we don't have, because it's like always like those Venn diagrams that I feel like are always posted all over the internet where it's like the things you love to do and the things that make money, and it's like they're just kind of like tip off. And since launching the book, I've realized very quickly, like, oh, you have to sell like a shit ton of books in order to really make money. And it's just a hard task to do, especially when you're a debut author. And a lot of other authors in the industry and my publisher were kind of like, you really start making money on your second book, likely because it takes so long to like build a readership with your first. And, I'm at the point where it's like, I want that financial independence where I can like have more time. Because when I'm a full-time mom, taking care of kids, trying to market and promote the first book and then write the second, like I don't have time to do anything because my kids are still too young to be in school full-time. So that's the game I'm trying to play right now.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I have so many questions on that. Before we jump into that, I want to talk about the tea we're drinking because I don't know if you know this. That. Yeah, our listeners steep at home with us, our steeple, if I may.
Our steeple.
Today we are drinking Elderberry Healer. It is a reishi tea to the surprise of nobody who listens. As I drink this, I drink all the reishi teas. It's interesting. I haven't tasted it yet. It steeps at 200 for 5 minutes. It's a little hot. I'm going to go for it.
I love mine like scalding hot. So I've already been a lot. Oh, I love your RBJ. Wait, is that what's your mine is this is what a published author looks like.
And you know what? When I first saw you, I was like, this is a published author. I knew it. Mm-hmm. I remember so for anyone who's listening, we've known each other for, years. Met at Google, and I want to say it was within the first year that we were there that you were like, yeah, I've been working on a book. I'm like, oh, yeah, me too. You were like, I'm accomplishing this other thing. I was like, oh, me? I'm sleeping a lot. But I do remember that, and you and I bonded over the fact that like you and I were both at a tech company, and had outside passions and this is not me taking away from anybody else who has outside passions, but like you and I had outside passions that we were willing to put in the work to pursue. Mm-hmm. Is that fair? Is that fair to say?
No, I think that is fair to say because I think it's one thing to yes, it's one thing to kind of do the passions or even just enjoy the passions, but to try to make it, I think, like we kind of already said, like your livelihood or your career. Like it was like it was like a side hustle for us that was like that we wanted, that we were just grinding at to like make a real hustle.
Well, yeah. So what I always explain to people, and this is like such a nerdy explanation, is I'm always like, have you ever seen a supply and demand graph where it's just like an X almost? I'm always like, if my Google is here and my comedy is here, for those listening, I made an X and I'm on the opposite ends of the X, but like where they meet at a certain point, I can jump off of the Google track onto the comedy track. You know what I mean? It's essentially trying to find that intersection.
Yeah.
And you did that, which is insane. I mean that as a compliment. I don't mean insane what are you thinking?
No. I know. I know that definitely. And it's not that like I did do that. I did, but it's not. And I did, as you know all too well, because I did share. You were one of the first people I shared my dream of publishing a book with.
Yeah.
But I didn't. It wasn't like an overnight decision, as you know. Like you know that I've been wanting to quit my full-time job and just focus on writing the book for a very long time. But it took me almost 6 to 7 years for me to actually do it and get to the point in my writing career where I was like, okay, let's see if I can make this work. And I still don't know if I can, like I
and I don't know.
And I'll let you know. We'll keep you posted. It could be that like in a few years I had to go back to corporate America, but if I do, I do. Like this past year, it's just wild how much changes and happens in a year, isn't it? Like this time last year, I mean, I was working full time with the 2 kids. Things were just crazy. I was getting the book ready for publication, and I got to a point where like it was all too much, and I realized that I couldn't work a very demanding full-time job, have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and then also market and promote the book and write the book. Like I couldn't do it all. And so I had to make a decision. And that decision was quitting Google, because I knew if I had it to fall back on, I don't think I would have been like, nope, this is it. Like, no, I'm going for it.
Here's my question, not to interrupt you. I'm just so curious.
No.
Like, so a lot of people say to me, like, you should leave, right? Like, go pursue this thing. And then I always go, and they're like, in worst case scenario, you can get a job in tech again. And my brain, and this is where I'm curious what your brain does. Yeah. My brain goes, could you though? My brain goes, I think that like if I ever tried to go back to Google, Google would be like, you were still working here? We didn't even know. We meant to get rid of you 10 years ago. Yeah. Like that's my first thought. And my second thought, if I apply somewhere else, like a different, tech company, they'll be like, I don't know how Google kept you on their payroll, but we're certainly not bringing you on ours. Like that is where my head, like, does your head do that to you? Maybe you're healthier than me. I'm open to that.
No. Oh, heck yes, it does. I'm also in a little bit of a different spot than you, where I felt like the stars aligned. And you don't have, and I'm not saying that it's still like you don't have a very demanding life, especially with like the comedy and working a full-time job, but it's not like you have the additional stress of kids yet. And it's not like, I also now, for people who know, I used to live in Chicago, but I recently, during the pandemic, while we were working remotely, I relocated my family back to the Indianapolis area to get more support from my family. And so because of that, like I was going to have to start traveling more. My manager and my director, I think, were willing to be really flexible because I'd worked there for a long time. I was doing a good job. They were very supportive, but like the expectation was very close to changing. And as you know, they're starting to scrutinize going back into the office very closely now. So that wasn't something I was willing to do. So it made my decision a lot easier. It kind of backed me into a wall, and it was kind of the perfect timing. With that being said, I will say what I feel like I really learned these past 2 years is that like you do need to close certain doors in order for other ones to open. And I think that time and those decisions and those doors look different for every single person, but I think that's usually like what you have to do. Like you can't expect both doors to just open for you magically. Like you have to to make the hard decisions at times and just jump.
I feel like I'm going to close the door and then there is no other door and then I'm just trapped in a room. Like, I feel like it's going to be like, I don't know if, did you ever watch the show Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Yes. And Nickelodeon?
Okay, yeah. So okay, this is a really weird tangent. There was an episode that
I am wondering where this is going. Like,
there's an episode that scared the daylights out of me. And my sister made me watch it and it stayed with me forever. This like family moves into this house and it turns out that there is I believe she is mute and she might be deaf, but there is a woman, a ghost, I think, who lives in the attic and is stuck there. Oh. And writes things on the walls.
Oh, and that's really terrifying. How is that on Nickelodeon?
I don't know. And it turns out, by the way, that like just to give some defense to this ghost, it turns out like she was just she was a tortured soul. She wasn't hurting anybody, you know. And she did, she needed her ghosty soul to be freed. Anyone who listens to like horror movies who's listening to this is like, what is he a ghosty soul? What is this man? But like part of me is like, okay, if I close the door on my day job, I'll just be trapped in the attic, writing messages to myself, unable to get out with no doors. Mm-hmm. Like that was a very long way to get to that, but I'm so happy I took that journey.
Okay, so I think one thing that did help when making the decision for myself was identifying what kind of, like, there's ways you can make these decisions responsibly, right? So like, is there a certain amount of income that you want to have, or is there a certain amount of cushion that you want to fall back on? Like, you know, I think I also did have to accept that in that vein, it was like no amount was ever going to be enough for me to feel really secure with making this decision. But I think you also are underestimating how personable you are, how funny you are, how likely well-connected you are. Like, you know, you have all of these things going for you that I think, I have no doubt, like, if you were to ever leave Google and if comedy didn't pan out exactly how you wanted, another opportunity would, and it would be for the better. I really do believe that.
I'm going to tell you this. So I see a therapist once a week. I'm going to fire him and I'm going to schedule an hour just for us. And because it makes me feel great. No, I do think it's interesting. One of the things that you brought up is that you have two kids, very cute kids, mind you.
Oh, they're cute.
Biggest objection to your children, honestly, is like Josh is a universal name that I think you could have used, but you didn't. And that's your own problem.
I do love Josh. Is it Joshua or Josh?
Technically, it's Joshua. No one calls me that, but you can if you want to. But no,
okay, I do love Joshua and Josh.
My mother doesn't even call me that. She calls me the other day. She tried to say something to me over the phone. She said my dad's name, who's passed away 10 years ago. So my dad's name, then my uncle's name, then our dog that passed away 3 years ago, and then me. So like, and it was still not Joshua. She was like, Stuart, Buddy, Josh. And I'm like, thank you.
Yes, mother.
Yeah. What do you need? But to go back to that question, so you have two kids, right? Mm-hmm. Which, and I don't have children, so tell me if this is a mischaracterization. But a kid at the age of 4 and a kid at the age of 2 is essentially also a full-time job. So you have a full-time job with two kids who, and I have my niece and nephew actually are 4 and 2. So like this is. Anytime I say that, by the way, people think that I'm saying that they're foreign too. And I'm like, no, I'm not foreign and they're not foreign, which would be fine if they were. But their ages are 4 and 2. But I do think that like at that age, kids only know what they know in that moment. So you can't turn to a 4-year-old, definitely not a 2-year-old, but also not a 4-year-old, and say, I love you. I'm going to be your mother. I'm going to be the most supportive mother in the world. And also, I just want you both to know that I have personal ambitions and I still see myself as my own person. And I really want to succeed in those ambitions. Would you mind kind of holding down the fort every now and again, just so mom can kind of get done what she needs to do? Like, isn't that, because at that point you were balancing 3 jobs. You're still now balancing 2 though. Is that not, is that an incorrect assessment?
No, it's a dang accurate assessment. Thank you.
Curse it up. Curse it up.
I'm tired. I'm really tired.
We have an explicit label.
It is so hard. Like, I don't know how to put it any other way, and just other than to be very real about it. Like, it is extremely hard. And I think my most precious asset at this, is it asset? I don't know. The most precious thing to me at this time is time. And I like don't have enough of it to do everything that I want to do. And I was at a book signing this past weekend. And the bookstore owner I love her. She was fantastic. And she was like, because I was like, I feel so guilty because I've been spending almost all my free time because I have like, my kids are both gone at the same time, only for 2 sections of time, 2 days a week. So I get like that, and then I get their nap time and the quiet time, and that's it. And so, and then I get the weekends, but like you kind of want to spend time as a family on weekends. So I just am trying to find more time. And I was telling this bookstore owner, I was like, I just don't, I feel guilty just promoting the book and not writing the second because so many people are finishing the first and they're like, when's the second one coming out? And she was like, your job is to focus on selling this book for the next 90 days, like the 90 days post launch. And I was like, okay, just to have somebody else tell me like, this is where you need to be prioritizing your attention was so important for me because I feel like my attention's being pulled in a million different directions all the time. And that's not really me answering your question. It's just kind of like me explaining my headspace, like my frazzled headspace that changes every day.
But I do think that is an answer in a way because I think that no matter how old we get, and obviously we both just turned 21, so like, but like
I know.
Very fresh. Old. It was my birthday on Monday, and someone was like,
"Oh, I'm so sorry I missed that."
It's totally fine. That was not. I mean, listen, that is a grab for a gift, but I know. Yeah, well, I already have your book, but I'll take a second. But no, it's funny because it was my birthday, and someone was like, "So how old are you turning?" And I was like, "In body or spirit?" And they were like, "What?" I was like,
that. I love that. I'm gonna use that.
Spirit 18. Body
That's kind of surprising.
37.
I feel like people don't really ask that anymore.
I think that's because when you are at an age where no one is carding you at a bar, no one really cares how old you're turning.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is that terrible? Mm-hmm. Should I not have said that?
No, I think it's true. I agree.
I do. It's funny. I got carded the other day, and the guy was like,
"I love when I get carded. It really doesn't happen very often."
Oh my gosh, I loved it. The guy was like, he's like, "Sorry to do this, man. Get your ID." I go, "Sorry, this is the best moment of my day." Yes.
I only get carded when I'm with my younger brother-in-law and his fiance, and I feel like it's because they look young, and then they're like, "All right, we carded these guys. We have to card you too." And I'm like, "Whatever, I'll take it."
Yeah, you're like, "Please card me. Please card me." Oh my god.
Yeah, I'll ride on their coattails.
I'll just like turn to the bartender. I'm like, "Man, college is hard." And he's like, "Yeah, I'll bet." He's like,
"You're still there, dude. You're still there. Wow."
Yeah, I was like, I'm only a junior, and he's like, "Yeah, just go inside. Like nobody wants this." I'm like, "Okay, that's on me." I regularly embarrass my fiance with stuff like that. Like if we're like out and about, like if we're gonna like order a drink, like if I go to order a drink, I'll turn to the server and I'll be like, "I promise I'm legal," and and she'll just look at me and be like, why did you need to do that? Like, why?
Like, sir.
Yeah, it's a problem. I drive her insane all the time. I saw a video the other day that popped into my TikTok feed that was you talking about the book. I think I hearted it. And and I was just like, good for her. Like, I don't know how to do TikTok successfully. As you'll see, but I just go on and say random stuff, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, I think that it is so unpredictable. There's a few things about TikTok, and I'm learning a lot. And there's so many things that I know now that I would have done differently before the book launched, especially on TikTok. But you just can't know until you're going through it. But TikTok is like, I didn't realize how different of an environment it would be than Instagram, because I had my following primarily on Instagram, and people who had followed me throughout almost my whole book publishing journey. And I think that's what garnered a lot of support for the book launch, was because people have known that I've been working toward this goal for so long. And so they wanted to support me. And, people from all walks of life follow me on Instagram.
Yeah.
People from Google, people from my high school, people from college, like people from all over. But it's just different on TikTok. Like, it's not as personal. I feel like you just kind of like put things out in the universe and you're like, all right, none of it's going to see it. And there's an element of that that's freeing, because you're like, all right, I'm never going to meet you. Like, judge me all you want. But like, I don't have to worry about like that judgment aspect of it. But then I'm also like, it's also like a whole different ball game. And you're like, wait, that got that many views or likes? Like, there's no math to it.
The other challenge is that, okay, so like, it's funny. So I talk on stage about how, and this is going to sound unrelated, but it is not. And by the way, if there's ever going to be a phrase on my epitaph, it will be that. But a lot of what I talk about on stage is that a lot of people are focused on like, they always tell people you should see a therapist. Like, oh, seeing a therapist is great. You should see a therapist. And they only think as far as that. What they don't think about is, oh, it's really hard to find a therapist. That is an entirely separate part of this experience that no one talks about.
Absolutely.
And it's it's a very subtle undertone, but no one calls attention to it. In your case, it is an insanely hard process to write the book. So that's number one. Number two, and obviously you should be talking about this more than me, but like, it's insanely hard to write the book and rewrite it and rewrite it and I can say that 1,000 times. It's insanely hard then to navigate the publishing journey, whether you're doing fully with a publisher, hybrid, or self, or all that, which I want to ask you all about. But then no one talks about this other piece that is kind of subtle, which is like, cool, and by the way, because you're not John Grisham or James Patterson or J.K. Rowling, you need to promote your own book, and good luck. We'll help you a little, but you need to go figure out this entirely separate skill set and do your best to make this happen. Like, I feel like no one talks about that.
No one talks about it. You're so right. No one talks about it. And I'm kind of trying to figure that out now, a way to talk about it in a way that like I can share it with more people, especially debut authors. But you're exactly right. Like, every stage of the journey, you think you're at the hardest part. It's exactly what you said. And I've said that a few times to myself, actually. Like, writing the book is the hardest part. No, finding an agent is the hardest part. No, going on submission is the hardest part. No, getting it published and publishing it's the hardest part. No, selling the book and building your own brand as an author is the hardest part. And you just can't ever anticipate it. And you have no idea the length that you have to go to in order to promote and sell yourself. Sounded like that could have gone in.
Yeah, you're
the
you're like, listen,
you have to go through. Well,
I will do what it takes. No, but I think like this applies to a lot of. I'm not at all suggesting we should go into like kindergarten classrooms and be like, if you have dreams, you better think about all the angles. But like, I do think about that, right? So like, if a kid is like, cool, I really want to be an astronaut. It's like, yeah, I'll bet you do, because you want to go into space, and that's awesome. Do you know the physical toll it takes? Are you aware that you're going to have to maybe put off having a family because you're going to need to prioritize space, overall costs? The same thing as like being a comedian, being an author. No one says also, even if you have a business manager, you need to be your own business manager. You need to understand a lot of these things. You can have lawyers review your contracts, but at the end of the day, you're the one who has to make the call. Am I willing to give up this percentage of my sales? Like, or, I'll give you great examples. So like when I wrote a play that got published years back, and they were like, they gave us a contract, and I had a lawyer look at it, and she said, do you want to negotiate a higher advance? And I was like, hell yeah. And she goes, just so you know, there are many more strings that start to attach themselves the more money that they give to you. And then she started explaining all this to me, and I was like, oh, holy crap. Like, why does no one talks about that? But like, that was a big underlying piece. Like, when you went into this process, after you did the hard part of writing and rewriting, and then navigating publishing, did you have any expectation of what you were going to be getting yourself into with the promotion of the book?
I had heard from enough authors that like, even no matter what kind of publishing support you have, you still have to basically either get a publicist or be your own brand manager and promote the heck out of your book, because especially as debut authors, you don't get the kind of support that many established authors do, who bring in a steady source of income for the publishing house, in which it behooves that publishing house to continue to like market that author who might have more of a backlist. And so I think that's like I think that is what, to answer your question, I had some idea, but I didn't really realize the full extent. And I don't think I could have even understood how much time and how time consuming it could be. So like, for example, even like we were talking about with like Instagram and TikTok, I mean, the social media strategy alone for the book and for myself as an author could be a full-time job. But it's like that on top of everything else, you know, it's like on top of like trying to figure out book signings and events and coordinate those, that on top of like booking and managing podcasts, and then the time that it takes to record the podcasts. And
wait a minute, you like, do other podcasts beyond Steep Conversations?
No,
we are upset. We're going to be filing a note with your publisher that is unacceptable.
Guys, sorry. I mean, they're not nearly as fun. Yes. Not nearly as fun.
All right, we're back in. We're back in the game. I feel good again.
We're back in the game. Steep Conversations will forever be one of my favorites.
Oh, thank heavens.
But yeah. So I don't think you can really know until you're in it. And so I would like to, and I still want to do this, but again, time is create a Substack for debut authors. And I kind of have the name already for it, called Rising Talent. And I want to basically share just like quick 5-minute, not even read, because like I don't have enough time to put more than that, once a week, where I share like things that I wish I would have known before launching my book. And I also highlight, you know, Bookstagram accounts, book talk accounts that are supportive of debut authors. And so like I kind of want to try to make a community out of it. I just, with how crazy things have been, I haven't had the chance, but that's something I really want to do in December and January.
Are there any, and I'm going to take us to the first segment in a second, but I'm just so curious, are there any very established authors like a Stephen King, right? Or you know, I named some of the other airport authors, or like a Jodi Picoult or someone like that. I don't know. Are there, is that derogatory to say? No?
No, I knew exactly. It's like, I've never heard that, but I'm laughing because I know exactly what you're talking about when you say it like that. Like,
yeah. But like, are there any of those people who are out there being like, hey, new authors, like DM me, send me a note. If you just got published, let me help you.
No, not even in the slightest. There's been a few. Stacey Wilmingham, who wrote A Flicker in the Dark. She's a New York Times bestseller.
I was going to say, that sounds familiar.
Yeah. She's based in Charleston. She, one of my friends connected me with her, and we talked before the book came out. And she was incredible, and she still kind of has been. But that was because I had a connection to her. And, you know, even though she was very helpful, a lot of like what she talked about was like the main things that I did when my book came out was like, I never said no to anything, which is something I'm definitely trying to do.
And you're like, now I'm going to start, but I didn't used to.
Yes. And then she was also like, a lot of it's luck. Like, her book got selected for a book club, and that was the main reason I think it really took off and became a New York Times bestseller. And of course, that helps you organically. You know, that's not to say the book wasn't great. I just think that because it was selected for a book club, she got all of these readers she might not have. And so she was able to get a big following rather quickly. And I think that's so, like, I think you would agree with that too, right? Like, so much of it is luck in this industry. And it's like navigating that with the manifesting and the doors opening. And it's like, I want to get freaking lucky.
Yeah, I think, you know, one of my favorite phrases is that, and I apply this to comedy, but I'll make it broader. Pursuing a creative endeavor of any kind is not and will never be a meritocracy. You know,
I could not agree more. Sorry to interrupt. I just
no, my God, please. I love it.
That.
Listen, I'm a New Yorker, and you know I love a good interruption.
I'm going to use that. I'm going to use it a lot.
It's the reality. There is you can write the perfect book, okay? And then the person next to you can write a mediocre book. If that book had, a blue cover and yours is kind of a grayish and reddish, and that person happens to have a connotation where they're like, you know what? I used to date someone that had a grayish reddish sweatshirt and I didn't like it. But this blue one, this is interesting. I'm going to go with this blue book. And the person who did that happens to be a super influential social media person. And then they start blogging going, hey, I love this blue book. And no one says, hey, was there another book that you saw that you didn't choose? No one's saying that. So this blue book author who maybe phoned in their book is now getting a lot of press and a lot of respect and a lot of love. Whereas you, who put in all this work and effort, you know what? Sorry, Clary, you chose red and gray and it just didn't work for you this time. Like, what a terrible thing. But like, that's a real thing.
Literally how it goes, though. I feel like, and that's not to say that luck doesn't strike you down the road, and that the more you put yourself out there for different opportunities, the more likely certain lucky incidents like that are to happen. But it's still, I just think that there is, and I think that was, to go back to your question about the journey and it being hard, like I think there's elements of that throughout the whole process of getting published too. Like there's luck with finding an agent, there's luck with going on submission, because for an author, you think you land an agent after all this time and you think that's the answer. Nope, wrong. You actually have to the agent actually has to sell the book, which turns out is almost impossible. And like you could have the most amazing book, but like, if this publisher just acquired something like it, they don't want to spend the money on it, timing's not right, then there go your chances.
Yeah.
Just like that.
I really do believe that. You know what? Actually, this is as good a time as any. Let's jump right into the Newly Friend game. Are you ready?
Yes. And wait, can I just say one last thing real quick about us, about our love for each other? But then there were so many things, but I still remember to this day you pitching. I was about to go to my very first writers conference before the book was done. And I remember you helping me parse out my pitch for the book, because at that point, which fiction authors, don't go and pitch your book to an agent if you don't have the book finished. That really got some agents very irritated. Learn from my mistakes. I was a young new author. I had no idea what I was doing.
No one's teaching. And that's a perfect example of timing, because had my book been in the place it was now and I went there, and that I would have gotten an agent, I know, hands down, because of the initial interest. But when they found out like I don't have a finished book, they were like, what are you doing? Anyways, you helped me develop a pitch for the book that to this day is still one of my like key elevator pitches. Oh my gosh.
Do you know that? Do you remember that?
I recall us having a big long conversation before that, and I remember I was super stoked for you because you were like, I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, and I was like, you're smart and talented. What do you mean, what are you doing? Like you're gonna, it'll be great. Well, but I didn't know anything about that, that it's still part of your elevator pitch. I have no clue what it was, but clearly, whatever you're doing is working. Like that.
I'll give it to you later, but it's just like interesting how there's certain people, and I think it is often other creative people who are formative in your own journey. And I feel like that was always you. And I feel like you were always a person who we could just talk about our dreams and our aspirations with, and we just got it, And I do feel like my advice for people is to find other creatives out there that are like that, who understand, because I think it's what allows you to keep going on this very challenging journey that's filled with a lot of no's and roadblocks.
Let me say something. You didn't get me a birthday gift, but that was a birthday gift. I love that. You're like, I got you. Okay, let's jump into the first segment. Okay. You ready for the Newly Friend game?
Yes.
The Newly Friend game, it's like the Newlywed game, but we're friends. Listen, you're already married and I'm on the way. As we do this, so I ask you a question. We both write down our answers. Then we flip to see if we got them right. Okay. And then we will do either the same or a different question for me. Kind of can go either way.
Okay.
You have a 4 and 2-year-old, and you are an author.
Mm-hmm.
I have a 4 and 2 niece and nephew, and I read them books all the time. So the question I want to ask you is, as you, not as your kids, because your kids will have their favorite books. As an author, what is your favorite book to read to your kids through the lens of an author? Is that, and don't say it out loud, but is that a fair question?
Yeah.
Okay. You have one in mind. You're already like, listen, I like this one.
Yeah.
Because like, I don't want to like steal your answer away, but what I will say is like, my nephew likes Thomas the Tank Engine, and I'm just like not here for it. Like, it's fine. But like, there are other ones I read that like are melodic or rhythmic or actually have a story where you see a character develop and change, and I'm just like, I'm like, this got me. This got me.
Yes.
Okay, so don't say it out loud. Write it down.
Okay.
What is your favorite book to read your kids as an author? I don't think this is right, but I'll tell you why I chose it.
Okay.
It's about a woman that gets embroiled in a terrorist plot. No. For kids.
My son has picked up my book before. I've been like, these are a lot of words. These are a lot of words.
He's like, boring. Wait a minute. So she's kind of getting blackmailed? And you're like, you shouldn't know what that means. Okay. All right. Flip your board on 3. 1, 2, 3. What'd you got for me? I wrote, you dropped something. I wrote 1 fish, 2 fish, red fish, blue fish. What? I can't see. What did you write?
It's Dear Boy and Dear Boy / Dear Girl, because they're like 2 different books. One's for boys and one's for girls.
Oh my God. Tell me all about what that is. I don't know. And I want to know.
It's adorable, and it'd be such a good gift for your niece and nephew. Okay, so it's just like I love the message behind it. It's basically just like Dear Boy, and it kind of takes you through like, it's okay to be sad, it's okay to have lots of emotions, it's okay to like my favorite line is yes means yes, anything else means no, like just important lessons that are very relevant to the gender or not the gender. The Dear Girl has like a different twist. It's more like, Dear Girl, like you can wear anything, do anything, be anything, and it says the same kind of lessons, of course, for boys too, just a little bit differently, or like make friends who are different from you, make friends, like things like that. So I loved it. When I first read Dear Boy, it almost made me cry, and that was also when I was hormonal and pregnant, but I still love those books. My son loves Dear Boy. My daughter's still not into Dear Girl yet because she's 2, but I still love that one, and my son loves that one. She'll get there. She'll get there.
So the reason I chose 1 fish, 2 fish, red fish, blue fish is it was one of the first times I read a book when I remember when it was read to me as a kid, where I understood that like books can do more than just tell a story. When I first was read that book, I was like, it felt like I was doing something fun. I was like, what are we doing? This is exciting. And as a result, like when I pick out books that I want to read, my niece and nephew, I want ones that are not just like, this is a tomato. The tomato went to school. The tomato, ate lettuce. Yeah. And then the tomato came home. I'm like,
Yeah.
Like, totally. Whereas, he has some books where, like, it's like, this is a blank animal or whatever, and the animal makes this noise, and then he and I get to make the noise together, and it's like, this is super fun, and it's got little pullouts and stuff, and you can, like, pop things up, and I'm like...
Yeah, for sure.
I want to do this all day.
Have you, I almost wrote this down too. Like, this is my second favorite series. Have you read the Little Blue Truck series?
I think I read that to my nephew, I believe.
Okay. The Little Blue Truck series is amazing. It's so good. And they have one for all the holidays. They have one for like back to school, leading the way, meets a new neighbor. And I feel like those are so cute, very rhythmic. They all rhyme. Important little lessons, all the little farm animals. Like, it's really cute. It's so well done.
I want to write an adult version of the Spot books where instead of like Spot goes to school, it's like Spot hits a joint, Spot has his first encounter with the cops,
Oh my
Spot
God,
goes to prison because he refuses to rat on his friend. Like, that is what I think. Like, I want to see the Spot series where it's like Spot meets The Wire. That's what I want.
I would pay so much money for that Spot series. I think we should try it. Should we do it?
I'm in.
Should it be?
We'll test it on your son, who will be like, okay, so wait, what is, you said Spot free based? What is free basting? And I'm like, don't worry, it's not for you. It's not for you. For the older demo. Okay, wait.
One
So
day,
now,
honey, one day you'll understand.
Yeah, one day you'll know what freebasing is.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's do this question for me. So
Okay.
we'll do the same question, which is, what is my favorite book? I'm not an author, but as someone who appreciates literature, what is my favorite book to read to my niece and nephew? And I'm going to write down 2, and I will give you points for either one.
Okay.
Because this is such a broad.
Yeah. Okay, so I get 2. I should choose 2.
Yes, and I'm desperate to give you a hint, but I won't. Because it's not fair to other guests who have come before you.
No, it's not.
You know what? I'll give you a tiny hint. I'll just say this.
Yeah, give me a tiny hint.
I love reading these to them because these were read to me.
Oh, okay. So it's a classic. Mm-hmm. Okay, you got it.
All right.
Okay,
so
ready?
flip your board on 3. 1, 2, 3. Let me see.
Oh, I almost did The Giving Tree. No.
I can't read yours. What did yours say?
I did. Okay, so I did Chicka Chicka Boom Boom and The Cat in the Hat / the Foot Book.
Okay.
And I literally, The Giving Tree went through my mind.
Cat in the Hat's incredible. I don't know Chicka Chicka Boom Boom, but it sounds like something I would like.
You don't know Chicka Chicka Boom Boom? I grew up on Chicka Chicka Boom Boom.
I don't know it. I
like
wrote,
A told B and B told C, I'll meet you at the top of the coconut tree.
That now sounds a little familiar to me.
Yeah.
And I
think
just
you might recognize
the
cover. Yeah.
I wrote down The Giving Tree, and I wrote down Caps for Sale.
I don't know. Have you ever heard of that? I've never heard of Caps for Sale.
Okay, let me quickly touch on each of these, and then I have so many rising order questions. But The Giving Tree, the reason I love that book is because I think that empathy is something that, as much as it is natural, it is something that children are going to have to experience to understand.
Yeah.
And I think that The Giving Tree is a great way for a kid to start having experiences with the feelings of, I feel sad because this individual, in this case this tree is giving so much of itself, and it makes me sad, and I feel sad for the tree, and I understand how sad that could be for the tree. I'm not a parent, but to me, empathy is a tough thing for anyone, for adults to understand. And to me, it meant a lot to me in reading it as an adult and as a kid to be able to have that space to explore my own emotional reaction to something that maybe wasn't here's a truck, goes down the street, and everything's great.
1000%. 1000%.
So that's kind of why that book
agree.
meant a lot.
There's so many lessons packed into that book that you don't even really fully understand. But it's almost kind of psychological, the lesson. And you're right, the emotions that it naturally evokes and kind of talking through what that means to children is so important.
Yeah.
And I do feel like it's here. I know. I love that. You're going to be such a great parent if you want kids. If you want
I do. I want to have 2 kids, and I want them to be really easy, not fussy, and let me sleep. So I think that's pretty reasonable.
I don't know.
Yep. Do I just put in that request? Where do I
Let's lower our expectations. Just need to lower those a bit.
That's what I used to say on first dates a lot. Just be like, let's lower those.
Whoa, down a few notches.
I was they're like, so, what do you like? And I'm like, who cares? The second book I wrote down is Caps for Sale, which was read to me by my dad growing up. It is about a gentleman who walks through town who is selling hats, but he keeps all of them on his head. So they're all the way up, and these monkeys in the trees keep reaching down and grabbing the hats and putting them on, and he has to keep getting the hats back so he could sell them. And so it's just it is not as emotional. It's very fun, it's very silly, it's rhythmic, and it's got a quality of this fun kind of they tease each other. The monkeys are teasing him, and he's kind of the ornery guy of come on team, give me the hats. It's fun. It's really fun.
I've never seen that one. I'm right. I wrote it down because I want to get that. That'll be a good
buy it from your Christmas local bookstore.
You know I'm the biggest fan of that.
Here's my question for you. I want to ask such a hard hitting question. What were your tax return? No. What have you?
You don't want to get into that.
Trust me, no ones are fun. Have you gotten any, I don't know, DMs, emails, anything from people you've never met being like, Rising Order changed my life?
Oh, I've gotten a lot of messages of people who said that like it really helps them during a dark period that they were going through or in the midst of going through. Yeah,
That's
definitely.
amazing.
I've gotten a few of those. Yes.
Have you gotten anyone who's just been like, Rising Order, more like Rising Border? Has anyone, because here's the thing. So I get trolls online all the time in my content.
I bet you do.
Most of them are just like, those ears are so big, he could probably hear, an ant sleeping, and I'm like, thank you. That's nice.
Haven't heard that one before.
Yeah. What's weird is it's always about ants, but, regardless, have you been like trolled at all online for it?
Oh, no, knock on wood. Not yet. I know it's coming, but I feel like that just means you made it. Like,
it does.
You know what? You're getting trolled. Yeah. Like, what's that little troll doing? Does anyone hurt you? No. But like, here you are taking the time out of your day to like go and like comment on this. So
great.
I think it's a great sign if you've been trolled. Maybe I won't say that once I have been trolled.
I was gonna say if it were me, the big thing I would have trouble with if I were to publish a book, spoiler alert, that's not happening. But if I were to publish a book, I think that I would need to like go into my web browser and block the Amazon page for my book so I couldn't read the reviews.
Oh my gosh, yes. Like that is one thing. So if like if there have been bad reviews, that's not really the same as trolling.
No.
But like I just know that's inevitable. Like the book is not going to be everybody's cup of tea. And I do not let myself read them at all. The problem is we're doing Goodreads giveaways with my publisher, and that means sometimes I have to go on to the Goodreads page, and so I have to see like how many people want to read it now, and how many like what the rating is, and like how many comment reviews are on it now, and that I try to like just like skim past, So
yeah, you're like, I don't want to see any of these. Yeah, I had a comic on here once who said, she was like, I would never want to make something that everybody likes. I'd rather make something that some people love and some people hate, because at least that way I'm getting really strong responses.
Totally.
I don't want people to be like, this is like, toast with your breakfast. It's fine. Comes on the plate. You don't order it. Some people eat it. Some people don't. And it's kind of whatever.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that when it comes to literature in particular, like there's a very popular book that I'm reading right now and I'm trying to read and get into. And I've been surprised personally. And I realize that I'm also looking at this from a very critical eye as an author. Like it's hard for me to enjoy books sometimes because I'm constantly studying them from a craft perspective. But this book, I'm not very impressed with the writing, and it's a very, very big book. And,
is it by an airport author?
Definitely by an airport author.
Okay. Got it.
But I think the biggest thing on this is like, to your point, exactly. Like if you love it because you loved it, or you hate it because like you hated this character, you hated how, but to not like it because the writing or something isn't bad, I feel like that's so different. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I think that a comedy is slightly ruined for me when I watch a special. I'm just like, ugh, like, or like I'll either see jokes coming from a mile away, or I'll criticize the construction, or I'll notice if the construction of multiple jokes in a row are the very same construction. Very much in the same way that like sentence structure. If you see like 50 sentences in a row starting with a dependent clause, you're like, punch me in the face.
Exactly. Wow, it is so crazy how it's like exactly the same for you, but different, but the same.
Yeah.
The same, but different.
I would worry from an author perspective, because not to like degrade my own art here, but like I think that you can kind of go through life if you want to and avoid stand-up. You can do that. It's not hard to do, to avoid stand-up. As for books, I think it's you'd be hard pressed to just avoid them for your life, and so it's hard to have that be the thing that's slightly ruined for you, because like that's a big thing. Like reading books is a big thing that it's hard to just ruin.
And this is fantastic, but I feel like there's there's apps like TikTok that are making it become like a culture, you know, and like reading, like book talks and reading, and who can read this many books and this many, you know, in this month and this year. And, you know, like I find myself because of that. And I know this is the same for stand-up probably too, but like, I feel like because there's so many and you're constantly comparing yourself to the other authors and their experience and their journey, even though they're all so different.
Yeah.
It's hard not to do that, I have found, in this stage where I am in. No?
Are you ready for the lightning round?
Mm-hmm. My tea's gone. I'm bummed. My team's gone, so I had to bring out the Stanley.
I respect it. Listen, Stanley doesn't sponsor, so you know what? Until they do,
I did love that
I'm not
elderberry. I highly recommend Steepers for this time of year especially. I will report back, hopefully by the time this airs, about whether it helps my immunity, because Lord knows I need it.
But you're ready for the lightning round?
Yes. Okay, do I have to write anything down for this?
No writing. So this is 5 fast questions. They do not at all have to be fast answers. Take your time. These are the same questions that we end every episode with. So question 1, what is a favorite ritual of yours? So for example, I love brewing tea. It brings me a lot of joy.
I love brewing tea too. Drinking my coffee in the morning, hands down favorite. But I do love tea. I have my tea in the evening. I love brewing my tea in the evening to relax and unwind. Always herbal, always decaffeinated. Sorry, can't do caffeine past 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Coffee in the morning.
I respect it. Now, are we doing at-home coffee, or are you going and grabbing coffee?
I love to go and grab coffee as a treat, but I'm trying to do more at-home coffee with my Nespresso and my little froth whipper with an espresso if I want to make myself a latte.
We also have an espresso. We do more iced coffee here, but I respect that you're foaming the milk, and I respect it. I'm into it.
Yeah. I love it when it's hot and cozy.
Especially as it's starting to get colder, and I'm in LA, but you are not, so I understand it's not the warmest for you.
It's not.
Question 2: what is a running bit you have with a friend or partner that makes you laugh?
I feel like with Justin, our running bit is it bit or bid?
Bit. B-I-T.
Okay, B-I-T. I'm going to use that from now on. I love that running bit. I feel like our running bit is just making so much fun of the kids behind their backs and being like, just fucking, like kicking them and like and just like, God, you shut the fuck up.
And then like the kids turn and you're like, kidding, we love you.
And then we're like, like we always just like are just like, and whenever they go to bed, we're just like laughing about like, do you see what they did today? Or like they do something and we like try really hard not to laugh. And then we like talk about it after. Like that's our day. That's our lives. It's just like a running bit around like the chaos of our lives and the children. And like, can you believe that happened?
I feel like if a kid did something ridiculous, as soon as they went for a nap, I'd like turn to Jess and be like, what a nerd. Like, you know what I mean? I'd be like talking trash.
1,000%. We're like, God, you're such a like P-U-S-S-Y.
Yeah, but you can't. But here's the thing: you could spell it probably in front of the kid; they still won't know.
I know. You're right. You're gonna have Josh, you're gonna have so much good content when you're a dad. You just have kids for your content. That's gonna be what makes you blow up.
So why did you two decide to have kids? Well, I needed some more jokes, and I felt like kids could be a good solution. Question 3: what is a very controversial opinion that you have?
Oh, do you want it to be literary? Because it can be literary right now.
It can be whatever you want. Whatever.
My controversial opinion is The Fourth Wing, which is this book I'm talking about. It's this huge like fantasy book that's like one of the biggest things since Hunger Games. I don't think it's well written. And some people love it. People are obsessed with it. And I'm like, I'm struggling to get into it. Now, I haven't finished it, so this is unfair. Unfair opinion, slightly.
Sure.
Because I do need to finish it, and I need to give it the benefit of the doubt until I do finish it. But I'm kind of unimpressed.
I'll say something, and I don't know if people widely say this or not, but I'll say it. I think that a lot of books that become very trendy, sometimes feel like poorly written YA.
Yeah.
And I say that in the worst way.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. And I actually I was talking to my sister-in-law about this book because I was like, I feel like it's like YA, but adult. And I don't think that there's anything, for how popular it is, I don't think that there's anything spectacular about the writing, which to me was a little disappointing. And maybe that's because my expectations were too high because of the hype. And like I said, maybe that's because I haven't gotten far enough in where the entertainment outweighs some of my like criticisms.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see. But that's my controversial for right now.
I think it's amazing. I do love that. And
don't come at me, Steepers. Don't come at me.
Steepers, okay? Just if you get really angry, buy the Rising Order. Question 4. Have you ever experienced imposter syndrome? And if so, is there one moment that really sticks with you?
I never experienced imposter syndrome really at Google. I will say that.
That's good.
A lot of people talked about that, but I didn't.
Yeah.
And maybe that's because I didn't feel as invested in my job and my day job like I do in my creative work. But I feel imposter syndrome every day as a new author.
Really?
Every day. Yeah.
You're published. You're in Penn Station.
I know. You're so right. But I don't know. I feel like I still haven't made it to the extent that I visualized myself making it. And that's just me being brutally honest. And I think that's also because I didn't really know, like, going into this, I didn't really have any expectations, but I just I've always been very hard on myself. Yeah. So even though I didn't really know what was realistic or not for the book and what actually could happen, I don't know. I'm just like, wait, I don't know.
I think that's totally fine. I think we all experience it decently often. And I think what's funny is, if you ask someone like Stephen King, like, have you made it? He'd be like, well, I mean, there's so many authors that are better. I think even someone like him is going to be like,
Yeah. I think so. I just did an event with at our library, which was big. People came from like Illinois and Ohio for it, and Allie Carter, who's a New York Times bestseller, and she's written many series, and she's very established in her career, and she's written for a long time, and she's got really awesome fans who have followed her since like they were essentially in middle school reading her books. And she and I talked during that conversation about how she's reached the point in her career where she has all of this, and this is probably the same as Stephen King. They can kind of do whatever they want to an extent. And I really envy that, because I think that's where I would like to be too. But to an extent, and I think you might experience this too, like you have to write a book that still people want to read and the masses want to read. So you kind of have to write to the masses, but then you're not supposed to write to the masses. But like, how are you supposed to be successful then and like make a living off of this? So it's this weird dichotomy.
People are always like, create what you want to create and it will find an audience. And I'm like, what if I want to create comedy that is about sock puppets in the Great Depression? I don't think it's going to find an audience.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think, like, whoever says that, like, have you ever tried to do it? Like, have you ever, to your point, like, are you in this industry trying to make it? Are you trying to make it? You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I think to some extent, okay, that's true. Like, if you're writing inauthentically, or if you are acting inauthentically and you're a comedian, like, then I think that will show in your work. Absolutely. But you still have to take into account and book publishing is a business. I've learned that the hard way, like trying to get published. That is the lens every editor and every publishing house is looking at your book, is like, will this sell? So to some extent, you're like, no, that's not true.
It's all economics, 100%. Final question for you. I typically ask people, what is your favorite tea or comfort? But I know you drink tea. So what is your favorite tea?
It really does depend on the season. Is that okay to say?
Sure. What is your favorite tea right now?
I do love a really good apple cinnamon tea right now.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
don't you agree? Yeah. Where it almost tastes like dessert.
Yeah.
And I love to have it with like a cookie or like something sweet at nighttime. That's like my number one joy at the end of a long day. It's just like sipping apple cinnamon tea, and it's slightly chilly out and you got some candles going, and then you have like a really good, if you're watching Great British Bake Off, even better, and then you have a great biscuit.
Oh, wow. Look at you little Brit. Okay.
I know.
A bit of a biscuit. I have a biscuit with my tea.
A bit of a biscuit, not a cookie, a biscuit.
No. And here's the thing. You don't want to make cream horns. I learned that from James Acaster's episode.
Should we go back and redo this and talk in a British accent the whole time?
So I'm going to delete this. And I think that what we're going to do, strictly British, the whole way.
Great British Bake Off themed. Yes, agreed.
Yeah, Paul Hollywood. Let's go. That's the podcast. What do you think?
Oh, I think that's great.
There you go. You
How'd
did
I
it. You were amazing. And for anyone who is listening, go buy The Rising Order.
Yes, please. It has been a long journey to get here, almost 7 years. It's going to be a series. It's a thriller. As I mentioned, very timely themes with what's going on in our society today. And if you do, please reach out.
Yeah. The Rising Order 2, Electric Boogaloo, will be coming, in the coming years. Well, Claire, thank you so much. This was lovely.
Thank you so much for having me. And Steepers, cheers. Cheers to making it through the day and pursuing our dreams and to this messy, messy life.
That was Claire Isenthal. You can follow her on Instagram @Claire Isenthal. Steep Conversations is produced and edited by Elliot G.B. Our associate editor is Martin Alvarez. Our theme song and additional music are by Oliver Hymack. Our cover art was done by Neil Fraser with photography by Matt Mazisco. Social media by Dia Villegas. Please write a review and rate our podcast on Apple Podcasts and wherever else you can. You can send any questions, comments, newly friend game suggestions, or tea suggestions to steepcombos@gmail.com or tweet us @steepcombos. I'm Josh Lanzette, and you can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook @Josh Lanzette. We'll be back next week, so until then, happy steeping.
Have you ever heard the name V.E. Schwab?
Wait, the author?
Yes.
One of my friends from Google just took a picture of my book at Penn Station, and it's like on the front of the Penn Station, and it's right next to her book.
Right. So me and Victoria went to school together, but I never knew her.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Wait, I need to show you this picture. Okay, can you see that our books are literally right next to each other? That's at Penn Station.
That's incredible.
Isn't that crazy?